Listen, the devil always has a type of falsehood, and even the Sumerian text was to be found in this time, because God gives all things in balance. We'll explain that, though. And so they had these children, these well-known things, right? And God saw that the wickedness of man was great in the earth, and that every imagination of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually, all day long, evil. No righteousness. No righteousness. So what happened here? What happened here? You're looking at the end result of the children. All of a sudden, humanity's heart is evil continually. Right? Did God destroy the earth because of the Nephilim or because of mankind? He's talking about mankind, not the Nephilim. God saw the wickedness of man. It shows you what he was interested in. And it repented the Lord that he had made man on earth. It grieved him. It grieved God that he made man on earth. It grieved him. It grieved him because his creation got corrupted. And it grieved him at his heart. The Lord said, I will destroy man whom I have created from the face of the earth, both man and beast and creeping thing and the fowls of the air, for it repenteth me that I have made them. Why did he add in man and beast and creeping thing and fowls of the air? Why? I'll tell you, because they were also corrupted. They were changed, genetically altered. And what were the fallen doing? And who tricked them into doing this? This is where you have to have the book of Enoch. There was one fallen angel, or let's just say he's still out there, that tricked the fallen angels, deceived them into falling in the first place. He was the same one that was in the garden. He deceived them. He has a name. You want to know the name? Read the book of Enoch. I'm not saying the name. The same one that was in the garden convinced them to fall, to have giants in the earth. Why did he do that? This is what I want you to see. The same one that was in the garden, that beguiled Eve, the exact same one, also beguiled the angels to fall. So it was the same one who was in the garden. So what was in the garden? What was spoken in the garden? The first prophecy was spoken in the garden. The very first prophecy was spoken in the garden. What was that first prophecy? Huh? Wasn't it that the seed of the woman would crush the head of the serpent? The seed of the woman would be victorious over the serpent. The seed of the woman would be victorious over the serpent. See, the serpent could only bruise, but the seed of the woman destroyed. You understand? So if you were on the wrong side and you heard God speak that prophecy, and you were on the wrong side, your mind would be, oh, I got to stop this before it starts. That's precisely what he did. He tried to stop it before it started. That's why Jesus was led into the wilderness for 40 days to be tempted of Satan. A face-to-face confrontation. And he overcame Satan. You know what he said? You know what it said? It talked about the Lord punishing Leviathan. We read about Jesus, what he actually said concerning the serpent, that right now he's cast out. Right? When Jesus died on the cross, Satan was cast out, which leads you to the book of Revelation, when Satan was cast out to accuse mankind day and night. He's cast out. All these go together. Cast out. All of them go together. But in Genesis, we see what this thing did. He is the one that beguiled the fallen angels to do what they did. That's written in the book of Enoch. And when the fallen angels were beguiled, and they had their oath, they made their oath on Mount Hermon, They bore children all over the earth. In America, too. That's why Native Americans talk about the star people all the time. The indigenous folks of each land, Australia, all of them, spoke about the star people all the time. People get fascinated with that, and what they're doing is reading into the edicts of the fallen angels, the sons of God, who were watchers, appointed to intercede for man, but fell from there. They left their first estate, of whom God did not spare them, that sin. 2 Peter 2, 4, and 5. So now what do we have? We have a situation. Now it gets interesting. That's just the preface, but I haven't spoken anything in reality yet. Something real. We have a problem. For far too long, we have been asleep. No wonder the 10 virgins were all asleep. 5 were wise and 5 were foolish, but they all slept and slumbered. All of them did. No wonder it says in the book of Daniel to seal up the book until the time of the end, when the secrets will be revealed. No wonder it said that, because we have had our eyes fixated upon a paradigm given directly from men and not our Father. And we have allowed mankind to interpret our Savior for us, never seeking him ourselves. We trusted somebody so much we didn't go to our secret place, did we? To simply ask, Jesus our Lord, what is the truth? And then because of our speedy lifestyle, we pray one day and forget what we prayed for the next. How many of you remember what you prayed for yesterday? You see, the truth is, many people don't. They'll say, Lord, please show me so-and-so. 16 hours later, they have forgotten that they asked the Lord to show them so-and-so. They really did. And these are, what kind of ways are these? Those ways are in your flesh. When I come back from this break, you're going to learn what you've been fighting. In my mind. Now, this is, I advise you, if you're a young Christian who has not had experiences, this part is not for you. I'm giving you forewarning now. Some of you, some of the old folks who've been doing the same thing for 30 years, and it's not worked for 30 years, this isn't for you either. It's going to make you angry and mad and upset because it tears down this false paradigm Satan has painted in front of everybody. And once you begin to step over that paradigm, instantly you're going to get one of those headaches because you're going to start thinking differently. Not a physical headache. It's always hard to understand, right, a truth when you've been living off of a lie. I know that personally, because prior to knowing Christ, all of us lived a lie. Because we claim to have life in something that was in fact death and not life. Only in Christ is there life. And what I'm telling you is that agenda 2 is underway. And even life has been circumvented. And the end times are going to end up like something no one has ever spoken. And we've got to wake up immediately. There are people out there who are casualties every single day. They are marked, and something is in their bodies. And who's going to go to them? You won't even talk to them because Satan has stuck up a barrier between you and them. Because they talk one language and you talk another, you will never, ever go to them. So how can they have deliverance if you don't go to them? I'm telling you, a barrier has been set up. You have been mentally conditioned to not look a certain way. And to look a certain way is the only way to get through or over that barrier. But who has the courage to do so? Well, you must know the truth yourself first and have the courage to walk to another and fight on their behalf as much as they allow you to, because there are people suffering right now and they can't even cry out for help because no one will come. That's the truth of what's happening. We're losing humanity every single day while the Christians are preoccupied talking about each other and what everybody else is doing wrong. Each and every day there are spiritual casualties, souls being lost forever. And the Christians, have become oblivious to it because we'd rather believe a lie and have pleasure in a type of unrighteousness. My prayer is the Lord allows us to get this right. And quickly. Folks, I'm going to be back. This is the 10 to 15 minutes I need. I'm going to play the old playlist, and I'll be back in about 10 to 15 minutes. We're not done. We're just getting started. It is almost 9 p.m., and we're just getting started. It'll be a long one. It is archived in case you can't stay up too late. All right? But we're by no means finished. I'll be back. Alrighty, no doubt you guys probably said, well, the old man may not come back. But I am back. We're not done. We're just getting started. Good evening, everybody. What time is it here? It's late, but we have a lot to go over. We do. We have a lot to go over. Genesis 6 is where we stopped. Now, before we go any further, it is imperative that I'm looking at the chat room, right? Here's what I believe in. For a pertinent question concerning the topic that we're having, all right, these are the questions that have to be answered, not things that are not pertinent. So if they're not pertinent to this discussion, I will not answer them, okay? But you're welcome to put the questions in there right away, all right? Because some of you were saying, you were talking about transhumanism. Could it be transhumanism, right? That will be covered in agenda number 2, right? The first time we're focusing right now on agenda number 1 of this, that the sons of God, the angels, the fallen angels, did come, right? They did come. They did bear children, all right? And they did so to what? But what was the main agenda? Well, we identified one entity that convinced the fallen angels to fall in the first place. That same one was in the garden. The same one. Now, that word Lucifer is also Lucifer and Satan's, plural. Satan's is an archetype, right? Satan's. That's why Jesus said the Satans. He used that plural, the Satans. But the same one convinced Eve to partake of the tree of good and evil is the exact same one that convinced the fallen, or beguiled, right? That he led astray the fallen angels. And of course, you may not know this, but the fallen angels, well, we won't go there, but they had children. All right, they had children. The first agenda, ladies and gentlemen, was physical, right? Physical. So what they had done was corrupted. We read in Genesis 6, and we were getting started. Now listen, I don't know about you in carbon dating. I cannot go with carbon dating because most of the animals that they dig up, the only way to truly carbon date is with an organic life form near that fossil or rock, right? And so you have to have some type of organic material, or you can't carbon date anything. It must have life. You can't carbonate rocks and things of that nature, okay? So here's what they have done. They dug up a T-Rex, or a portion of a T-Rex. They carbon dated the bones, right? So one piece of the bone, listen, one piece of the bone was 2,000 years old. Another piece of the bone was 40 million years old. Another piece was 50,000 years old. Another piece, 4,000 years old. So the dates were all over the place, right? All over the place. And so when you deal with carbon dating, it's inaccurate. It's a bust. You can only do so if you don't have drastic changes in the earth like we have had, because the carbon dating is based upon a constant, a decay rate. Well, we all know the decay rate changes based upon the radiation from the sun. So then if the sun changes, so will the dates based upon degradation of materials, the half-life and things of that nature of elements. All of it changes based upon the dynamics of the solar system. So it's unreliable. So what are they doing with the dates? It's called a best guess. We know that before the flood, life was corrupted on the earth. Now, it is specifically, it says in Genesis 6. I'm going to go back there in Genesis 6. It says, and God saw the wickedness of man was great in the earth, and that every imagination of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually. And it repented the Lord that he made man on earth, and it grieved him at his heart. Right? Listen. And the Lord said, I will destroy man from whom I have created from the face of the earth, both man and beast and creeping thing and fowls of the air. For it repenteth me that I have made them, plural. So it also grieved him that he made the birds and the fish or whatever else was going on land. Why? Because in the book of Jasher, it breaks it down even further. How that they had genetically corrupted every species, chimeras running all over the place, which is why in Egypt, even right now to this date, they have certain tombs with the bones of multiple species in them, hoping they never come back ever again. They never ever want those things to come back. So they broke the bones up, put them in a special tomb, praying that they wouldn't come back again, sealing the evil from within. So listen, that word corrupted, we have to analyze this. How do you corrupt all flesh? He didn't say the spirit, did he? He specifically said flesh. He didn't say the spirit. The flesh, both man and beasts and creeping things. And what the fallen angels taught mankind was the mixture of such species. The forbidden knowledges they did give man, right? Which is why some of the dinosaurs in the neck area, they won't show you all the bones and the ligaments that go with the dinosaur. Because you'll find out that some dinosaurs, strangely, had vocal cords. Now, what in the world is a dinosaur doing with vocal cords? How can a bird light up like a lightning bug? They don't tell you things like this, do they? Huh? They want you to think of Darwin, that things evolved somehow. No, all that DNA was corrupted, which is why they pay big money for dinosaur bones, so they can harness the code, and you don't even know it. Well, who in the world will pay big money for dinosaur bones? Who? I'm talking about big money. Because they're hoping to find active material within the bones. It is the key to something else they're doing. And if you don't think they're experimenting with hybrids and chimeras, right? You're wrong. Some of you women out there, a lot of you women out there, you may not know this, but you can have a child and have a blood test and it will not be yours. Why is that? Because of your ovaries. One can be from your twin sister, the other from you. That's why. You can have two distinct females in one. And you know that happens every so often. A woman has a child. They test the baby's DNA and the mother's DNA, no match. 0 matches. Right? Why? Because the twin was inside the body of the other. In the ovary. 2 different ovaries, 2 different sets of genes. 2 different signatures. Right? That happens. You can have 2 white people, Caucasian, white, that have an African American child. You can have 2 black people that have a Caucasian child. Asian person that has a European child. You see, what you look like represents a fraction. If you filled a house full of marbles, then what you look like is 1 marble. 1 marble of what you could be is what you look like. 1 marble. Now just think of that one. So what did the fallen angels do? The Lord specifically says, these guys, there were giants in the earth in those days and also after that. Now, curiously enough, this word giants, it should have been expanded upon because it implies something twofold. Right? It is the strange flesh. And a strange flesh is something God did not create, which is why he destroyed them. Right? Now, in the other books also, some of you guys have read how that they ate up all the acquisitions of men and then began to eat mankind. Right? And then you hear Job tell of a story about places they won't go because of the things that walk, that have necks like the cedars, a dinosaur. Which is why libraries are often found with dinosaurs on them. But instead of just the dinosaur, they were utilizing them. They were training them, speaking to them, or whatever they did. There were writings and books of how to subdue them. The Egyptians wrote of stories of issues they had with one, so they would go hunt down and get another type of dinosaur to guard certain cities. You see? We think all this stuff is fascinating, and here's how you fight it. Here, because everything you have learned, right? You say they back it up with evidence. The evidence you blindly trust because you can't reproduce it yourself, but because you've been taught this generation after generation after generation. It's now embedded in you. And this whole realm of both truth and falsehoods is all mixed together, making us partly weak and partly strong, just like the fourth kingdom. To be absolutely strong is to have the absolute truth. To be partly strong is to have part truth and part lie, and then to live by that. Because it makes you weak and ineffective. You can hope for the best all day, but the end result is not the best when you base something on a partial truth, which is a lie. The fourth kingdom itself is a lie. Right? And so, these things were all over the earth. And God destroyed them with the flood. Michael, Raphael, Gabriel, Uriel were sent down. God charged them to make them fight against one another. They did consume one another, followed by an extinction. Curiously enough, why don't we find modern day fossils? Anybody? I'll tell you why. It takes great pressure to produce a fossil. First, you have to preserve it. How do you get something under such pressure to preserve it in dirt? How do you do that? Water. That's how you do that. Water. Water. It takes a lot of water to get these bones up. If you put a body under pressure for a long time, it's going to fossilize. And it doesn't take as long as you think. If you have no water, no pressure, it's not going to fossilize. And that's why when you go to dry places in the earth, you often see the remnants of sea life fossilized. But you see it under sediment, which slowly exposes itself. So it was at one point, it was under great, great pressure. Right? And we know that some of the Nephilim survived the flood. That's why you hear of the Geborim, Raphaim, Anakim. Goliath, in fact, was a 1, 2, 3, 4th, 5th generation Anakim. 6 fingers, 6 toes was their mark. Some of them have 4 fingers and 4 toes. These offspring you've been dealing with and you didn't know it. And it's a shame that people are fascinated with them because they don't come from the stars. You see, they've been bound. They have been bound. I'm going to read something to you now so we can get rolling in this. So the first agenda was to what? It was to corrupt mankind. Because in their minds, they love their children. In a twisted way, they love their children. Do you not know? That's why the book of Enoch is so important, which is why most people don't want you to read it, because the fallen angels, they asked for forgiveness. They wanted their children to live. But God said their children were neither mortal nor spirit. And therefore, when they would live 500 years, and when they died, their spirits will go forth as evil spirits. In the book of Jasher, it says the same thing. Now, I'm not suggesting everybody go out there and start reading all the text that you can find, because you need a foundation in Christ to be led of the Spirit into truth, that you may have that knowledge that the Lord has approved as good knowledge. But don't go out there yourself and start reading everything. You've already been down that road, but it didn't work out too well. So, these things hybridized much of the earth. Kings. You guys remember 2012? I'm sure you guys remember that, right? You remember when they said that the Quetzalcoatl was coming back? You remember that? How the Mayans were promised to rule and reign for 1,000 years. Come to find out, many of these civilizations that died were promised to rule and reign for 1,000 years. In Revelation, we read of the 1,000-year reign of Christ. So why were they told they would rule and reign for 1,000 years? And all these civilizations, they told the Egyptians, they told the Mayans, they told the Incas, they told all these people the same thing. Why did they say that? Because I'm telling you, you're dealing with a twisted mindset that was trying to take your place, is what they did the first time, and stop the seed that would destroy the serpent, because they already knew about the cross. They knew about the cross. They knew one would come and destroy the very one they served. And their servitude is real for the ones they serve. They are on their job. They are fighting for life and death. They are. They're doing it. They don't stop, but we do. They're fighting, we're playing. And they're real. You know, in 1947, when Israel became a nation, right? That's when you began to hear all the stories of things. But here's what you don't know. Do you not understand that when people began to see the strange things, one of the first things the military-industrial complex had noticed later on was a message. And you know what the message was? Kill the Hebrews. Kill the remnant of the Hebrews. Wipe them out. To kill the Hebrews. And kill the remnant of the Hebrews. See, these messages began in the 1400s that they documented, that they found out. Which is why in most wars, the Jews come up. Time and time again. Why? See, in Agenda 1, it was about the bloodline. It was. They were sent to corrupt the physical seed of mankind. That was the first infiltration. Correct? They wanted to disrupt that seed so they could live on. You see, these things, right? These things, they perceive life differently than you and I. And they don't want their end to come. Why do you think half of their teaching is in mankind right now, as it was in the days of Babylon? The first agenda didn't work. It didn't work. God destroyed the earth, right? Mankind, beast, animals, save those that were kept, but the Nephilim still survived. Joshua was told to go wipe them out, and he failed to do so, which is why you have an issue. Do you know there's scriptures? And it does imply that if Joshua failed to do something in a place called Palestine, near Palestine, that evil would be in that place until the end came. There's an actual scripture like that. And what did Joshua do? He didn't do it. By his order, it was not done. Therefore, the spirits of domination of these things are in that place because they're also chained in the Middle East. That's only part of it, ladies and gentlemen. So now, in Genesis 6, you can see we have a big problem. See, in 11 it says the earth was corrupt before God, and the earth was filled with violence. Now, this is what you need to know. This is a trademark of them. Have you ever gone up against somebody? This is their trademark. This is their true. When you leave a fingerprint, you leave a piece of yourself, a mark of identification behind on everything you touch. Their fingerprint is violence itself. Violence. Look at the earth right now. In the hearts of men, violence. You know what's in the hearts of men? Let me tell you what's in the hearts of men if you don't think this is real. When you wake up every single day, you're either on defense against somebody or you're going to bring somebody down. You're going to show somebody the truth. In Christian terms, I'm going to show them the truth. They need to know the truth. What are you doing? You're going to war of yourself because you woke up and you placed your mindset there based upon emotions. So what you're dealing with are the fingerprints of these guys. You ever talk to someone and the more you say to them, the less they hear from you and the angrier they get? They won't hear a word you have to say. But the more you talk, the more that gets corrupted. And they take exactly what you said and turn it back on you to destroy you with it. These are fingerprints of the fallen themselves. Their influence is still in the earth. Simyaza, all these individuals, Azazel. Their names are fragmented throughout the countries. Same root word. They're the ones doing it. Now 200 on Mount Hermon, the chiefs of tens, they were bound. That was not the complete number. Let me tell you why. 1/3 of the angels in heaven fell. Agenda 1 didn't work. And guess what happened after the flood? Immediately, they began Agenda 2. Why do you think the bloodlines in the Bible are so important to read? It was common knowledge in the Bible, which is why they track genealogies for corrupted DNA. And let me tell you what you're dealing with. In your flesh, you don't even know what your own bloodline is. They did back in the day. They did back then. They knew who was the parent of the parents' parents and the parents, which is why they looked down on people just jumping in and getting married. Because they had to know who had these genes in them and who didn't. And so we came to a point with Nephilim still in the earth, immediately kick-starting agenda number 2, that all flesh would be corrupted again. Mankind can't help but to mix species of dogs and cats that come up with new stuff, can they? Hybridizing plant life and everything else, and we think it's cute. Oh, it's harmless. No, it's not harmless. One wrong plant can produce something we have no immunity from, and they don't know what they're doing. So who is inspiring all this again? That's part of agenda number 2. The first time they were seen marching around and everybody knew about the fallen angels and their men of renown. That's the key term. Men of renown, giants. People could see them. Now they're clandestine. Before people knew about them, they were men of renown. Right? Zeus, Hercules, all these folks. Correct? The Pantheon itself, the Mahabharata, all these things. Correct? People knew about them. Enlil and Enki, people knew about them. They knew about them. They did. They knew about them. Today, you don't know about them. They're nameless today. Nameless, and nobody talks about them. It's a no-no to ever speak of them. Yeah, it's a no-no to you. You see how what has happened here, because the first agenda was set to corrupt the physical seed of man. By doing so, they could stop the redemption of man. Right? Because man would be unfit for redemption. And they were destroyed. Immediately they jumped to the second infiltration, set to corrupt the spiritual seed of man. That's what they're doing now. You see, your flesh is kaput anyway. It's kaput. Your flesh cannot be redeemed, and there is a reason for that. See, Elijah was taken up. Enoch was taken up. Right? We can't be taken up in these bodies like this. We can't. Because the bloodline of Christ was preserved, and he was taken up in his body, wasn't he? Isn't that something? But we can't. We have to be changed. You guys with me on this? We have to be changed. We have to have new garments. We have to have new garments. But the flesh of Jesus was pure, but we have to have clean garments. We are wearing filthy rags that are not fit for redemption. Right? Now in Revelation, when it says that great number that no man can number, they wash their robes white in the blood of the Lamb. It is the blood of the Lamb that can overcome what's in your flesh. You have no idea what's in your flesh. And now they're pinpointing all of you. They're hunting down, and they will find every last remnant. You know why they like people to go back to Israel? And they require the testing? There's a common test you have to take in this earth period. You're going to get your DNA analyzed. They're collecting everybody's DNA. Ingenious ways they have thought up to collect DNA. You have Ancestry.com, where the Mormons are gathering up the DNA, storing them in vaults, and the information goes to the federal government. Why would the federal government allow an organization like that to collect all the DNA and have the mountains that really belong to the federal government to store them in? You think about these things. So they're collecting all the DNA of everybody, so you can see who you come from. What are they doing with the DNA? They're identifying something in you. This goes for agenda number 2, because think about it. Why do we have technology in the first place? What are we actually using technology for? I'll tell you what we're using it for. You see, it's a bit of a little magic act that happened in you. You think you need that device, that cell phone, that telephone, that computer, and everything else. Here's what's happened. You have that device not to use constantly, but for convenience. Some of you have that device for your job, but it's also convenience. So then it sits around monitoring you more than you're working on it. And they already know that. They know you're going to have your computer on and just leave the screen up and walk away. They know you're going to leave a television on or something like that. They know you're not going to turn your cell phone off. Who turns their cell phone off? Who does that? They know you're not going to do it. And so what are they doing with the DNA and with the surveillance? Because listen, it does no good to monitor anybody, what they say or anything else, unless you're recording information. The NSA began that a long time ago. And the reason why the NSA started was because of something very dreadful to humanity as a whole. It wasn't meant for the people. It was meant to find those among the people, something you know nothing about. And then it all changed. All of it changed. The NSA was never meant for people. You see, there are those in power who know the story about the fallen angels face to face. That's why the weapons of your warfare are not carnal. Right? We know that reading Jude 6, these angels did not keep their first estate. But Isaiah 26 is one of the most revealing verses you can read. I mean, it really is one of the most revealing verses. They were dealing with things, even in the time of Isaiah, that was it was just harsh. Right? What does he say in Isaiah 26, by the way? In 13, O Lord our God, other lords besides thee have had dominion over us, but by thee only will we make mention of thy name. Do you know what that means? Isaiah understood something. Now, in the time of Isaiah, once you do your homework, it was common for them also to have the book of Enoch. He was a staple in the culture of the believer. He was. All of them were acquainted with the book of Enoch. Why do you think it's false so much now? When you even talk about the book of Enoch, people say, oh no, not that book, not that book. That book can't be real. And they just make up stuff. On what basis? Right? He says there are other lords besides you that have had dominion over us. That's what he says. Even in Babylon, they were dealing with some things. They had some things over there. Right? And then they're described in Isaiah. They are dead. They shall not live. Why are they dead? They were killed. They are doomed. Right? These giants and men of renown that wreaked havoc on the earth, corrupting everything they could corrupt, the entire earth was corrupted. Isaiah says they are dead. They shall not live. They are deceased. Yes, they are. Listen, how can something be deceased and have dominion over you. How did they die? They bore children. They had giants were in the earth in those days, men of renown. Who did die? Right? It says they shall not rise. How can they not rise? Because they're held in everlasting chains. That's why. Therefore, thou hast thou visited and destroyed them? He did. He sent the four angels to expel them, to bind Azazel hand and foot. He was thrown into a Baal's jail, and the rest were bound, set one against the other to destroy them. They're bound in everlasting chains. And listen, and made all their memory to perish. That's us remembering them. When you go to the average church, you're not going to get a history lesson on Genesis 6. You're not going to do that. These are telltale chapters. Telltale verses. Right? This is agenda number one, ladies and gentlemen. Number two is what you're in now. You're not in agenda number one anymore. You're not. You see, when Jesus went to the cross, many people don't even know, at that moment, Satan was cast out. Satan was cast out. The great deceiver was cast out. That old serpent called the devil and Satan. Cast out at the cross. It is finished. Most people don't know that. They struggle to know. They can't put it together. They're gone. Kaput. No more, no more. All right? How can I say that with such confidence? You guys remember what let me see who remembers the verse we read last night. Who remembers the verse? The one specific verse that just told everything. I mean, one of those tell on you. It told on him. You guys don't remember? Anybody out there remember? I'll tell you what it is. Let's go to John 12:31. You guys remember that? John 12:31. You want to go there and read it together one more time? Come on, folks. I hope you're not bored. Because we have to make mention of a few things here. It's not easy to say because nobody wants to hear it. Listen to this as I read it. You want to listen? You want to read along? Now is the judgment of this world, Jesus says. Now shall the prince of this world be cast out. Pardon me? Lord, what did you just say? Pardon me? In John 12:31, what did he just say? He said, now is the judgment of this world. Now shall the prince of this world be cast out. If he's cast out, then why do people think he has so much power? Well, it's the same way they are tricked into buying a brand new something that they saw on television. Mental manipulation. And I said yesterday, if you ask yourself, what did you actually do today? Where did you spend most of your time? And I told you the answer would be in your imagination. You spent most of your time, most of your emotional time in the imaginative world of what could be or what couldn't be, not in this realm of reality. You spent most of your time thinking about things. Some people were nervous. Some people were worried about constructs of the imagination. You know what an evil imagination is? It's when you think Jesus won't come through for you based upon his word. In other words, when you doubt him. That's evil. Who put that in play? Did you ever think of that? Wouldn't that be an evil thing to do that? Huh? Wouldn't it? Ladies and gentlemen? That would be terrible, wouldn't it? What do we read in Revelation 12:7? Now, we just read John 12:31. And of course, just about everybody is familiar with this scripture in chapter 12, Revelation. And the great dragon was cast out, that old serpent called the devil and Satan, which deceiveth the whole world. He was cast out into the earth, and his angels were cast out with him. He was cast out. Gone, kaput, goodbye, goodbye. Isn't that something? What does the Lord say? Now is the judgment of this world. Now shall the prince of this world be cast out. Revelation is using the same language. Jesus is telling something of a process. That small stone turning into a mountain. That small stone that nobody could stop on agenda number 2 turning into a mountain. But they're not doing it physically this time. Not in your eyes. That's why they're so sneaky and creepy. Now, most of you have had an experience and you didn't identify it. You've been oohed and awed with the thought of space, and you don't know why. Many people have been convinced that their home is out there somewhere. They have. That they want to escape this place, which is the place of work, and go to some other place where there is no harvest. So they don't want anything to do with the harvest here. They're ready to go and leave the harvest. Forget about the people who need to be harvested by those who belong to the kingdom and go somewhere else. And that this is happening in the minds of a lot of people. But how did that happen? Why did that happen? That's because of agenda number 2. The most dangerous agenda. The eternal agenda on the face of the earth. And another deluge will surely come. Because it has come. You see, because agenda number 2 is consuming the souls of mankind. And I'm telling you now that if you're given over, if you're given fully over to a delusion that God has already allowed to be here, you'll never get out. You won't get out. You'll run around in a fog and you'll accept it, and bitterness will settle in. You'll become angry with just about everybody, full of offenses. Anything anybody says, you're going to think they're talking about you. You're going to be offended. Why? Because the Lord said they were given over to a strong delusion that they would believe a lie, that they all might be damned, who loved not the truth, but had pleasure in unrighteousness. If you love the truth, you won't depart from it. If you have pleasure in unrighteousness, you're having pleasure in the world. The Lord said, to love the world is to have enmity with God. How simple is that? Who loves the world? Who out there loves the world? Who loves the world? How many of you love the world? I'm going to show you something for those who say, I don't love this world. Well, I don't love this world. Right? Wouldn't most of you say, I don't love this world? Let me put it a different way. Who loves things in this world? Oh, that changed everything, didn't it? Oh, well, you can't say that. Because there are things in this world I love to do, and they're harmless. There's no problems, no trouble in this, and doing this, and doing that, and doing this. What is it of? That's almost like saying, well, there's no problem in liking Satan's fingernail. There's nothing wrong with that. Next thing you do, there's no problem. The arm is not harmful of Satan. Next thing you know, well, the work that the arm did, it's okay. And then the next thing you say is, well, you know, the torso of Satan is not so bad. And the arm working. Before you know it, you have accepted the whole thing. Because listen, the truth is this. If you love a piece of something, it came from that something. And your love is in that something. It doesn't matter if you love a piece of it. Because it comes from a whole. And that's how people are being truly deceived. by saying, well, there's no issue just loving this one part that's harmless. Yes, it is. Oh, yes, it most certainly is, because you're forgetting this infiltration is a spiritual infiltration.